Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I'm decided today I'm going to show you the various instruments that exist in orchestras and bands because I focus on the woodwinds, but there are a lot more instruments than just the woodwinds. And just to give you kind of a heads up, if you like to play several instruments, and most of us do play several instruments, all your instruments that you play should be either woodwinds or brass or percussion, strings. If you're playing woodwinds, you should not be playing brass. If you're playing brass, you should not be playing woodwinds. That's just kind of a general rule of thumb. And the reason for that is that the embouchure is different. And when the embouchure is different, you can weaken an embouchure so you lose it. And you have to start from scratch in developing it. When you start playing, you don't have an embouchure. And as you play more and more, you develop an embouchure. And you strengthen those muscles around your lips, excuse me, so that when you do play, you can pick up an instrument and play and your lips don't get weak and they don't get tired. But if you're going to switch and play brass, your brass embouchure is going to use different muscles than your woodwinds, and you're going to ruin your woodwind embouchure. If you're playing brass and you start playing woodwinds, you're going to ruin that embouchure, and you have to start again and build it all up, which you can do, but what a waste of time. Now, of course, if you're playing woodwinds or brass, it won't make any difference if you play strings or anything like that. That's not going to be a problem. But anything in which you're using your lips. So let me define what a woodwind is, because that's basically what I do in here. A woodwind is an instrument that you either blow into or blow across or put in your mouth, and it sometimes has a reed, sometimes does not have a reed, but it is not like a brass instrument where you have a little cup-like thing for a mouthpiece and you put it up and you kind of blast through it. I've shown you that before. But the woodwinds you can put in your mouth, across your mouth, or you can blow into it. Sometimes has a reed and sometimes doesn't. Okay, now some of them even have two vibrating reeds, and they vibrate reeds against each other. So this is what they are. Woodwinds are instruments that play music by blowing into or around the hole, which is considered to be the mouthpiece, and sometimes you have a reed, sometimes you have two vibrating reeds, or sometimes you have a hole to blow across, and the mouthpiece is in the mouth. So those are the different kinds of things. Now, the single-reeded instruments are saxophones and clarinets. The double-reeded instruments are going to be the oboes and the bassoon. And then, of course, you have the fifes and the pan flutes and the regular flutes that you blow across. So if I am to demonstrate here a little bit, here's your Fipple mouth recorder. Clarinets will have a single reed, saxophones will have a single reed, but in all these cases the mouthpiece goes in the mouth, and you tongue against that reed, or you tongue against the block of the instrument that doesn't have a reed. For flutes and pan flutes and fifes, you would have an instrument that looks like this. This is not a flute, but it looks enough like one that I can use it for demonstration, where you have a hole where the mouthpiece is, and it's usually built up around the sides, and you blow across it. A little bit like blowing across the Coke bottle. You put it underneath your lips and blow across it. Those would be for the pan pipes and the flutes and the piccolos. Okay. All right, so getting back to this. The mouthpieces go in the mouth. When you have something that has no reed, these are the instruments that have no reeds. Recorders, song flutes, the melody flutes, tonettes, the Indian flutes, ocarinas, melodicas, Peruvian flutes, Sasuto flutes, the wooden plugged flutes with the Fipple mouthpieces, Clark's flutes, and other flutes. And many are in the key of C or in the key of D. Those are basically the woodwinds. Now, what I want to do is talk about stringed instruments. The stringed instruments are going to be violins, violas, cellos, bass viols, sometimes called slap basses, guitars, banjos, ukuleles, piano, harp, harpsichord, and the brass instruments going to be trumpet, cornet, bugle, trombone, baritone, English horns, sousaphones, which are the tubas, and you have other instruments like that. Percussion, you have snare drums, parade drums, bass drums, kettle drums, cymbals, tambourines, chimes, xylophones, glockenspiels, and then the woodwinds being the saxophones, clarinets, flutes, piccolos, oboes, bassoons, and also the pan flutes. And then I do have a list here of the melody flutes, which we work with most of the time in here: recorders, melodicas, ocarinas, harmonicas, sassoon flutes, penny whistles, conical flutes, pan flutes, end-blown flutes, Indian flutes, song flutes, tonettes, and other recorder-like flutes. I gave you kind of a list before, but this list is a little bit more complete. So what I want to do is to show you what are these instruments, and if I can point out certain things about them. This is going to be a sousaphone, sometimes called a tuba. This is what my father played. He played all brass instruments, but this was his main instrument, and he studied at the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston. And you can see it's really quite top-heavy. I know a guy who was a little bit soused, you might say, in a parade. My father was marching, and he was marching beside this tuba player, when they were both playing this size tuba. And the guy wanted a place to hold his, a way to hold his music stand, because he didn't want to carry it and he didn't want to leave it somewhere, because they were doing a concert afterwards and he needed to put his music on his music stand. So instead of leaving it in his car, he had it with him. So he found the great way to hold it. He stuck it down the bell of the tuba. And after that, the tuba didn't work so well. You couldn't get air through it because it clogged it. This is a really big open space, but it's not meant for you to put anything in it, because it's going to get stuck down here when it gets to the narrower kinds of tubular shapes. And so you have all of this, and you have these three valves. When you play brass instruments such as trumpet, you have three valves. And you don't see them very well here, but this is where they are. You have them in the sousaphone, you have them in other brass instruments as well. So that's the sousaphone. And I'll try to get to the next page. This is my father playing his sousaphone. This is an old picture. Now, some of these sousaphones you can have like a portable size. This one here, and it does play like a sousaphone, but its tubing is a different shape, and so you get some of these smaller ones that aren't so hard to handle. Here's another one right here. This is going to be a bell. This is going to be the mouthpiece. You can see the typical mouthpiece that you have in a brass instrument. It's not like a woodwind, and you want to take note of those three valves right here. This whole thing, the valve's going to be up here, and this is just where you press it down. You press it down like a piston, and you press one, the second one, or the third one, or various of those three in combination to get your various notes. And then, of course, this is a mouthpiece. And they're actually a very nice instrument. But you have to have a completely different embouchure. Now here is your trumpet. Anything that flares out toward the end, with a sousaphone or whatever they are, this is going to be the bell. And the other instruments I just showed you had bells. These are going to be the three pistons like here. They're called valves, and the mouthpiece right here. This is an actual trumpet. I have pictures in here of that looks like, well, actually, this looks a little like a cornet. And by the way, this right here, this little valve is called a spit valve. When you get too much moisture in your instrument so it's not clear, you open that valve and you just blow. You don't press any of these valves here. You just blow into it, open that one, and the moisture comes out, and that keeps it clear. Most instruments that are brass do have a spit valve somewhere on them. This is your trumpet, and here's your valves. This is a little spit valve right here. Then you've got your bell and you've got your mouthpiece. And you put your thumb, one of your thumbs, right in here, and you use the other hand to balance it, and you use the other hand to use the various valves and that you press down in combination to get the tones. It's a very interesting instrument. This is a trombone. Now, some trombones actually have little valves to them, but that would be very unusual. You can sometimes get a trombone that plays a little like a trumpet in the fact that it has the 3 valves and you press down on them for the notes. Most of them are slides, so they're called slide trombones, and this will slide down and you put it in different positions to make the tube of different lengths, and you can get the different tones. You blow in here, your hand goes right here, kind of between these 2 metal areas. Your spit valve's down there. This is the bell, and this is the mouthpiece, and then you just blow into it the way you're supposed to. They will teach you how to do that right, and you just push it in different positions. You've got like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th positions on it, and those positions are how far you move that slide to get certain notes. I do have a trombone, and it has a really good tone, but it has some little things that need to be fixed about it. French horn. These are going to be what's going to be the valves. Instead of having the round valves with the ivory tops, you press these down, you know, and it's a hard instrument to play. And here's going to be your mouthpiece right here. Lots and lots of tubing in it. It has an absolutely wonderful tone. They're very difficult to play, and they blend very well with woodwinds. So a lot of times if you're having a solo or a song that woodwinds are doing, you actually let the French horns join in because it blends so well together. Here's another picture of the French horn, mouthpiece here. And you kind of cradle it in your lap. The mouthpiece is in your mouth, but you cradle it, and so that you know it's held like that. It's a very, very nice instrument. Now, I'm going to say this is a cello, but it looks like a violin. It looks like a bass. I think I'm going to call it a cello because of the way that it's designed. It looks a little bit more larger than what a violin would, and because a violin is really quite small. Here is your violin. That's obviously a violin. And you put this neck piece right up to your neck and put your chin on it as you go in and play. When you start off, you don't sound very good, but you get better with time, and these will tune the strings so that you can have your instrument in pitch. I'm going to consider this to be a slap bass. It's like the other instruments. You notice that little thing on the bottom? That's a stand, and usually when you play a slap bass, you a lot of times play it standing up, and you put it down, and so it's not, the instrument itself is not really resting on the floor, but it's resting on this little stand. Of course, you have to hold it as you're playing it. That looks like a slap bass. My father had one. It was metal, but most of them are wood. This is a ukulele, 4 strings. They play really nice music. They sound really good. And they say you can teach yourself. I'm just waiting to buy one and see if I can teach myself. Here's another uke right here. This came out of an advertisement. It shows the hand positions and the way that you strum. They're really quite a nice instrument. They've got a nice little soft tone. They're a very nice instrument. This is an oboe. A double-reeded instrument. You can just see the reed right here. And this would be the fingerboard, and then this would be the bell, although there's not really much of a bell to it. And then these here are going to be your side keys. I've mentioned before about side keys and fingerboards. This has it all. They're a very nice instrument. They have a kind of an odd tone to them, but they're a beautiful instrument, and they play very well. And I've played them occasionally. I don't have one, or it would come in. I'd be demonstrating it to you. Oops, let me see if I can get this. There is a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. This is a bassoon. It's also a double-reeded instrument. It's fairly large. You're talking about 36, 37, 38 inches. This is like a bocal. You find them on the bass recorders. You blow into it. It's not really a mouthpiece, it's called a bocal, and you have a double reed on the end. They're very tall. You set them kind of like on the floor. As you're sitting down, they will tower above you. You don't get a true chance to see what the size is. They're a beautiful instrument. They have kind of an odd shape. They're double reeded. And I love playing mine. When I had one, I loved playing it. It was actually a student instrument. It wasn't mine, but it was a nice instrument. Okay, saxophone. This is going to be a tenor. How do I know this is going to be a tenor? That little crook in the neck piece. Whenever you have a part of an instrument that's like folded over, whether it goes straight across or whether it has a dip, that's going to be a neck piece. This is going to be the body of the instrument. The fingerboard is going to be all of these keys, which I didn't color it in so you don't see it that well, but there's a group of keys. All of these main keys are going to be the fingerboard. When you get to these keys on the side, that's going to be side keys, and there are some side keys over here. This is going to be the octave mechanism. You press, you can't see it in this drawing, but you press your thumb in the back of the instrument on what's called an octave key, and when you do that, that little key pops up on the top, and it automatically gets that instrument to play an octave higher. And when you don't want it an octave higher, you just don't press that key anymore. This little thing pops back down, and you have it in the normal range, whatever that is. And there's a little screw here where you take your neck piece. You can take your neck piece out, and when you get an instrument like that, you do take them apart and you put them in cases to keep them safe. I'm kind of watching my time here. Here's another saxophone. It's just in color. This is the way that the mouthpieces are. They're single-reeded instruments. This would be yellow part of the mouthpiece is called the ligature. Now the ligature just holds, good, thank you. The ligature, which is usually, it can be gold or silver, the mouthpiece is usually black, it holds the reed in place, and these two screws will hold the reed in place. So you put the ligature over the mouthpiece, and the reed fits in there, and you just screw it into place. Here's the neck piece. It's an alto. There's no dip in it, so therefore it's an alto, but it is a neck piece. This is going to be the octave mechanism. You can see these little keys, the real expensive ones. They can be ivory, but they also can be plastic. And that's the fingerboard, and then all of these other keys on the side are the side keys, and this is the bell. It has a curve. The larger saxophones have larger curves, but that's how the instrument is made. It was my first instrument. It's the one I've had my most training on, and it's the one I've played the most. This is just another drawing of it. Neck piece, mouthpiece, all of these are your fingerboard, the bell, your side keys. I actually think it's a very beautiful instrument. Here are three of them. You've got your alto, and I'm only showing you this to show you the respective sizes. You've got the alto, you've got the E-flat baritone. That's really the biggest. Well, no, there's one bigger. There's a bass that just towers over this. But you can see all of the metal areas are looped, and they're looped because instead of making them straight and making them even bigger, they can cut down on the size by making the tubing convoluted. Here is your bell, so you can see how large it is. And here's your mouthpiece. This would be the tenor, which I showed you before with that little dip. So the saxophone, there are several of them. They're in different keys: the B-flat tenor, E-flat baritone, E-flat altos, and you don't see the larger ones used a lot unless you see them in parades. Here's another really nice picture of a saxophone: mouthpiece, octave mechanism, neck piece, fingerboard, side keys, and bell. And when you get one that's bright and shiny, it's something else. Now here's a picture, I took it from a magazine. This man is playing the saxophone and he's got his fingers in the right position. This little finger is on a side key. These fingers are on the fingerboard, and of course you can't see the whole thing, but you see how complicated these instruments get. All of these little rods here, all these little tubes have a rod inside of them. If that rod bends, you can't play it. You can pull them apart, you can change them, you can change the keys, you can change anything on them, but they are very complicated the way they are built. And here I've got, this is a little soprano, it's straight, it's small, and just to show you the different sizes of them. Now, let me move over here. I got to watch my time. We'll get to the clarinets. I only have 3 minutes left. So you know what I think I'll do? I'll just go over the clarinets and then we'll close it, and I'll finish the rest of it next time. The clarinet is more difficult to play than the saxophone. The mouthpiece is going to be right here. You can see the ligature. This is going to be the barrel, what's called the barrel. This is the upper body. You see that metal like going apart, going across. This is going to be the upper body. This is going to be the lower body, and this is going to be the bell. It's a more difficult instrument to play because of the fact that the two registers are not the same, so you have to learn two separate fingerings, sets of fingerings to play it. The upper register is not an octave. If you press the register key, it's not called an octave key, it's called a register key. You get an octave and 4 or 5 notes above that, so you really have to learn two sets of fingerings to play it. Well, you know, we are running out of time. I think I'm going to close it here, and I'll start off with the clarinet next time, and we'll go through the rest of the instruments. I think you'll find it interesting, and I want to show you various things about them that you might not know. So we'll close it here, and please join me next time.